Welcome to the Tearing It Up podcast. I'm your host, Taryn. We'll be tearing it up, tearing it down, and tearing it apart, dissecting all things related to those who deviate from the standard. From leaders of their industry to leaders of mediocrity, and maybe a gear review or two thrown in. We shoot the shit and let the conversations flow, so if that's not your style, this may not be for you. Otherwise, listen in. Hope to light a fire in you somehow. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Tearing It Up. I'm excited to be talking to our guest, Martina, today because one, well, more bike stuff, and two, she's in the Pacific Northwest. So we always love a Pacific Northwest gal, and, we'll dive further into where she's rooted from. But right now she's up there, and still, like I said, Amber and I love our Pacific Northwest people, anyone who has some of their roots there, whether it's currently there or from there or anything like that. And even still, me being in Tahoe now, it's like that place will just never not have a majority of my heart. So it's really exciting to talk to someone who's there physically. And anyways, Martina has a company called Swift Industries. So I'm going to let her, as you all know, dive into what she is all about, what Swift Industries is all about. But first off, I would love for you to tell the people where exactly in the Pacific Northwest you're recording from today, Martina.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Hey, Taryn. I am sitting in the Central District in Seattle, Washington, and it's a glorious day up here. The mountains are just out and the water is shimmering, and it's just like, this is why we live in Seattle. It's so beautiful.
I love that so much. Just a beautiful spring day. Today I actually have our door open, which is it means it's getting to that time of the year that at this time in the morning I can actually have the door open and it's not like too cold. I don't even know if our heater kicked on at all last night, which is crazy. And it's just I do love this time of year, but spring feels so fleeting in Tahoe. It feels like it goes to summer so quickly. It just starts to get hot and dry. And I'm like, no, come, like stay longer. It's so beautiful.
A precious window for sure. Like, God, those crisp early mornings. That's like my absolute favorite.
Yep, some wildflowers popping, and you can still see the snow on the mountains, and like it's warm, but you have the crisp feeling and the tapering off the day or starting the day, and it's just like, I just love it so much.
Totally. I hear it.
Amazing. Well, will you tell us a little bit too about Swift Industries, what it is, and what your role is in it today?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Swift Industries, we are a bicycle bag brand, and I started it in my basement with a sewing machine and a roll of fabric in 2008. So, it's a truly homespun, self-started company, and now you can find us in bike shops all over the world. We're proud to be in REI and just like these major recognized retailers. And it really is an extraordinary path that we've been on. You can imagine the early days I was sewing in my basement, making every single bag from start to finish. And they were basically one-offs. So we would make them to order for our customers. And here we are in a very different place. So I wear a lot of hats at Swift Industries, as you can imagine, but I'm the owner, founder. I have a co-founder. It's actually my husband. He's no longer active in the company on a daily basis. He is a guide and is out in the mountains most of the time. So we're like steering this thing together, but I run the ship on the daily. And we have one other person full-time in the company, and that's my sidekick, Kelly Anderson. She's our operations and numbers person and like the most fucking radical person to work with. She's incredible. And so we are a powerhouse of two individuals running this company.
That is crazy that it's two of you like that are the most hands-on with everything. And to think that yeah, you're a global brand and in stores like REI, that's incredible. And I know there's a story there of kind of the growth and just the peaks and valleys of having a team and not having a team, which we've kind of heard and seen in the outdoor industry specifically lately too. Like I have been following a few brands for a while, and I keep seeing their stories of like we grew to a team, but then we had to scale back down. And I mean, I'm sure that in itself is so hard as a founder to get to this point where you have a team and you're able to kind of delegate, and it just means you're growing in one way. But then to be back in some stages where you have to make those cuts is, I bet, one of those hats that you maybe don't want to have to wear at times, for sure. Because even though you grew to a bigger team, it's still, in the grand scheme, like a small team. You're not like a corporation of 100 or hundreds of people where you get disconnected from everybody. So I'm excited to kind of dive into the journey there. But before we get that far, I am curious about where, of course, it all started. Like, I know from our conversation before recording, you're not from the Northwest. So let's take it like way back to the archives and kind of where you grew up, or at least how the outdoor industry or bike industry kind of influenced you and when it came into your life.
Yeah, oh, fun. So I'm totally a West Coast kid. I grew up in San Francisco and in a very like classic Bay Area, not conventional household. Um, like just surrounded by artists and creative thinkers and very free thinkers, both of my parents in their own unique ways, and was always encouraged to pursue creativity and independent thought in like really provocative ways. And I mention that mostly because I think that I've really taken that foundation and applied it to the like out of the box thinking that it has required to scale this business in the ways that I did. There's a million ways to run a company. And I did it the way that I knew how, and that those foundations are like wholly from my parents' influence. Um, so I was a wild kid. I was like the kid trying to get to the top of the tree as fast as possible. The higher, the better. You would have found me in my overalls and my completely unkempt hair. No way was I going to put a dress on. Was like happiest in a squad of like all the kind of like dirty faced boys running around the playground. So that's a little bit about who I was as a kiddo.
I
I
love that so
Yeah,
much.
I also have this other side though that was as nurtured and encouraged by my folks, and that is like I am also a true introvert. Like in the sense that I love to be solo and contemplative in order to recharge to then get back in the game and get rowdy.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself usually loving to work with my hands. So whether that was I like started knitting when I was really little and was like always doing like tons of crafts and loved bringing objects to life with my hands. So I think, when I look back at like how it is I became a bag maker and a bag designer, I can see a very clear through line from when I was little. These are like, again, very foundational core things about me that have led to this place.
That's amazing. And I can just resonate so much with all of that. I just actually came back from a couple days. I keep wanting to say a weekend, but it was a Tuesday through Thursday with this. A couple friends of mine put on a women's entrepreneur little retreat just outside of Truckee at this beautiful place on a creek that had these little cabins, and we dove into a lot of kind of deep stuff. And I was explaining to the women of like what does wild mean to you, I think was the question. And I was like, honestly, I think of myself as a child where it was like running from the hairbrush. I didn't put a dress on, no shoes, no socks. Like, I just was in the dirt. I just always filthy, and I just feel so home still in that realm where it's like when I go on a bike ride, if I come back without like some scrapes or bruises or dirt, I'm like, well, huh, that wasn't really like my kind of, like that's not really me. But yeah, it's just amazing to feel that kind of inner child and just to have it in you, and to hear when other people had that too. I'm like, yes, like I connect so much on that. But then also that contemplative side, I didn't really feel that as a child, but I feel that now a lot. Like, nope, I need that time inward to like kind of reset. It's I think I'm a pretty good balance of extrovert introvert now in my life.
Yeah, yeah. Taryn, I think that we would have rallied super fucking hard on the playground.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now it's so fun having like my niece and nephews because I really do love being the aunt where I'm like, yeah, let's get into some trouble. Like, let's get dirty. Like, yeah, jump off the swing. See if you can go higher, you know? And the parents and grandparents are like, oh my God, what are you doing? Be careful. I'm like, they're fine. They're fine. You used to watch me jump off the porch with a freaking plastic grocery bag thinking it was a parachute. Like, this is okay.
So good. It's so good.
Yeah. Oh, that's just I love it, and the fact that you worked from or with your hands from such a young age, that always really impresses me too. I love working with my hands and doing things, but I never was into I tried a little bit of like knitting and crocheting as I got older, but I found it's much harder for me to do those things now and it's like a sit still thing. Like I can't get into it. We were painting over the last couple days and I was having the worst time. And I think it's also a paradox of like when I'm not good at something, I have a much harder time focusing on it. But like I said, it just impresses me those people like yourself who started like making things in this creative side of them at a young age because I was just wild, rampant. But how did that carry on for you like through your older years? Like did your path start to go like one way or the other? Did you find yourself being a little more introverted in your older ages or kept a good balance like through high school, college and those things?
Interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, I think I've always been somebody who's like really connected to community. And so like my social networks have been like I also come from like a lot of like subcult stuff, like uh was like super in the punk scene for a really long time and in kind of like a more political punk scene. So like I feel like I've always been somebody who aligns a lot with counterculture and um in my case have gravitated to where like it's kind of like philosophical and very values driven. Um and that really came through kind of in every step of the way. I've always gravitated to things that again are have like depth and really think about contribution to the world, and then are have like this very physical side. I'll give a couple of examples. So like I actually went to school to become a small scale farmer.
Oh,
So totally different than what I ended up doing, but there were like a couple of things about farming and agriculture that I really gravitated towards. One is like this thought of feeding people is just absolutely profound to me. And at that time, like I loved that intersection of like that super physical work and this gesture of like giving back to a community and being yeah, like being nurturing a community. Um, and so that's kind of what drove that. And I was thinking a lot about like racial disparities and access to food. I had certainly like I was drawn to a more rural agricultural context, but I was also really interested in urban agriculture. So yeah, it just kind of like those are the ways that these things cropped up and always find myself gravitating to like in agriculture there's an individual named Wendell Berry, and he's like a deep philosopher and a poet and a land steward and really calls on farmers to be the stewards and environmental and social stewards for their communities. So like like you can come at being a farmer from a lot of different places. This is a good glimpse and example of how I gravitated towards it. Always like thinking about kind of the deeper gifts and purpose behind the things that I am into. So I think that's a big part of who I am.
I love that so much because I just feel like a lot of people don't really have that maybe at the forefront of their mind. Like I feel like I do have to kind of dig deeper into things and figure and see these trends of like, oh, wait, like I was doing things like this, what like these were meaningful to me, but I could never like really place, I guess, a name on them or something. Of I've just been thinking a lot about values and doing a lot of work around values, and I think it's hard. And that's where, like, yeah, you can see, like, all right, this has been instilled in me, and I did do these things. But sometimes when it wasn't like a focused effort, maybe then you don't realize that you did have this value in you for forever. So I'm always really impressed by people who saw this from a young age, what you were doing, like being involved in the. Said I liked that the political kind of like punk subculture, and yeah, it was always very women forward, but I don't feel like I ever made any big stands or anything. And sometimes I'm like, wow, I was just going with the grain like everybody else. But like I said, dig deeper and you know that you were doing different things. But just very impressive to some for me when I know that people have been kind of standing their ground and their values and had such a what it feels like to me, what I hear from you is a just such a solid like belief and strength in it from a young age, and I just love it so much. And the how did you get from the small scale farms into bike bags? And I'm sure there's a like a windy path there, but I love seeing the difference from there. And that's how a lot of our stories are. Like we just had a woman, Casey, on who's a bike mechanic, and I mean she went into real estate, and she thought from 10 years old she knew she wanted to be a real estate agent. And I was like, that's a crazy career from that age to think about. But this is what I love about the podcast and the guests we have is most of us have an idea in our head of one thing, and it all of a sudden you end up over here and you're like, where'd you get how'd you get there? So I would love to hear a little bit about the path of how you started migrating from the small scale farming into where you're at now.
Yeah, so I know it sounds like completely out of left field, and maybe in some ways it is. But basically, like, back to those college days when I was thinking like a lot about social movements and politics and wanting in a very pointed way to make sure that my lifestyle was as minimally environmentally impactful as it could be. That's when I started getting into bikes. And like bikes are so like I am like flabbergasted that bikes have remained this completely core part of my identity for so long. They kind of came out of nowhere. So in my early 20s when I was in college, and like there had been no hint of like bikes or anything prior to that. Zero. Like I didn't grow up with a bike, or I mean I had a bike, but whatever. I was in like the streets of San Francisco. It wasn't
Mhm.
like I was out on my bike a ton. um but what I found in bikes when I did discover them, so first it was like a utility tool. It was for like grocery getting, and I was in a small college town in Northern California. And so it was like really accessible to ride around. It was cheap. I didn't have to pay for car insurance, et cetera, et cetera. And then I started to want to learn how to work on my bike and just got like really excited about the mechanics of it. And just, I don't know, there were so many things and continue to be so many things that click for me about bicycles in like how I want to show up in this world. So what kind of progressed was that I found a really empowering space for like as a woman to be able to move super super independently. And I experienced that both coming home from shows at 2 in the morning and feeling like I knew exactly, I had full agency over my movement and my safety getting home. All the way through like rallying with a bunch of buds on trails and like going bike packing and doing like these really truly epic bike packing trips, like through the Rockies, along the divide, and stuff like that. So somehow bikes continue just to be a foundation for so much community building and so much agency and empowerment for me. yeah, I'm so grateful that that's the tool that showed up in my life to kind of like synthesize all of those things. I have other tools that are, also rad and empowering, but bikes has been a through line now for like 25 years of my life. That's like literally more than half of my life. So,
It's amazing. I love that just the way you've talked about them too, because we talk a lot about bikes on this podcast, especially at this time of year. But a lot of it is just like how fun they are and how you can connect it back to, I don't know, like feeling like a kid, really, especially mountain biking or, going downhill fast, or just the, if you did have happy memories with a bike as a child, like that, how it can come back into your life that way. But I don't know. I mean, maybe we have, I'm sure we have, but talked about it as kind of like a utilitarian kind of tool. This is just another, I feel like, a great example of it and conversation about it, because I know that mountain biking and such isn't accessible to everybody, nor is it what everybody wants to do. But I do believe bikes in general have just such a wider reach to people and can do so much for people's lives, that talking about it in this way can remind people, like, look, we're not always talking about getting fast and furious on a single track and going over the bars, getting dirty, bloody, all this and that. Like, literally, you can be on your cargo e-bike going to the farmer's market and it just feels so fucking good.
yeah, it's like the best. It
Yeah.
feels it feels so good. And then also like there's shit days on bikes too. Like,
Hmm.
you know, but it just like in terms of um yeah, in terms of like mobility and joy and feeling like you're contributing and like taking concrete climate action, like god, what is up? The bike just like it has it all.
It
It's really
does.
incredible. And like, there myself, I was like really skeptical when like e-bikes came on the scene, and I was like, oh, like whatever, like this is gonna make biking so easy and it's cheating and blah blah blah. And now I'm just like, fuck all that noise. Like the more
Hmm.
people who can be accessing elements, their own versions of the empowerment and joy that I feel when I get on a bike, the better. Like it is a true net positive through and through. So I'm like, I'm here for all of it.
Same. I feel that same way when e-bikes came around. I was like, I don't know. And especially with the, more so, I guess, in mountain bike world is where I was like, for me, it felt like cheating because I wanted to like make sure I was pushing myself the hardest. Like, oh well, no, if I start riding an e-bike, I might as well be riding a fucking chairlift. I'm gonna get so out of shape, this, that, and the other. But obviously, we know that's not the case, and I have completely turned around too in the accessibility that it allows for so many other people to get out on your bike, or hello, just to get to work that much faster, because sometimes it is a roadblock where like I would love to bike to work, but then I really do have to plan an extra like hour, bring a change of clothes, like all sorts of things depending on what you do, where you live, and all that. And with the e-bike, you're like, cool, I have the basket now, I'm not like sweating like a pig, and it was just a lot easier to use it as a commuter. So like you, I am so for it in all capacities, because in general it just gets more people outside, because no matter where you live, whether you're in like a big city or out somewhere in a mountain town like I am, you're still outside on your bike. And I think that that is just so important for so many people. It's like spend more than the time it takes to walk to your car outside.
Yeah, totally. Totally. So, to go back to that kind of like how bikes became then even more central. So, back to my entrepreneurial itch, I was in college now in Southern Arizona or in Central Arizona, and I was there on like student grants or like federal aid, work aid. So I had to like work my way to get my scholarship money, and it was fine working in the cafeteria, but I saw this massive gap and I was like, oh wow, there's no like bike shop or bike support on campus. I'm going to open up like a community bike shop on campus. So I put in my pitch. The school was super down and started like as a group. I just like grabbed gathered all of the bike nerds and started a bike shop on campus. And that's how I met my partner, my husband. He became super involved in that, and that's how we met. And so like bikes just like were such a big part of my everyday. And when we showed up in Seattle, Washington post college, um I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. I was like looking around again for these kind of urban agriculture initiatives, coming up a little bit dry. And one day I walked into this sewing studio, a company called Reload that made messenger bags on site in Seattle. And I just walked in there and I was like, "Hey, are you guys hiring? Like, I know how to sew." And the owner looked at me and she was like, "This is crazy. Like, we just got notice from one of our main stitchers." And she was like, "Yeah, let's like come in, let's do an interview and see what happens." And thus I became an industrial sewing machine operator. And weirdly enough, I loved it. And I say weirdly because um sewing actually is like so hyper repetitive and so like could be seen as so mundane because it's production sewing. You follow a very strict sequence in order to construct something correctly and make everything look the same. And as a creative, what I have found over the years is that it's very, very hard to find a creative who is also interested or engaged in repetitive task work. And the way that I kept myself totally engaged wasn't intentional. I think it's just like part of this kooky nature of who I am. I just was like, all right, next time I'm going to make the bag faster. And I just saw it as this puzzle that totally captivated me. I mean, I was a sewer there for over a year, and I just wanted to find ways, continuous improvement, just like ways to make my process, my sewing times more and more efficient. And I got obsessed about like where my scissors were and where my materials were. And I would take time to lay out the project before I started. And I just like zoomed, I just went. And I mean, God, I was like busting out so many bags a day. It was so nuts. Um, and at that time, there was a shift. There was kind of this like urban messenger scene that was like really big in the early aughts, fixie scene. And Jason and I, we really came out of this like outdoor culture. We went, I had very recently in college done like a 21-day backpacking trip that was insanely formative, had grown up in the Sierras in the summers with my folks. Um, and so while like urban scenes I've always loved them, and like the more kind of like fringe, the better for me. um, I was like really excited to think about accessing the outdoors and nature, and maybe we'll call it wilderness by bicycle. And I wasn't a mountain biker at that time, like hadn't even gotten my toes wet in that capacity. And so it started to feel really natural. We had all this backpacking gear. It felt really natural to start putting that backpacking gear into our bicycle bags. And I kind of just like looked at the messenger bags I was making and I was like, well, I wouldn't want to carry it on my body. And the bicycle panniers that are out in the market right now, they were very dated, they felt stale, they didn't have like that style and kind of like swagger that I loved about like kind of the messenger scene. And I was like, all right, it's time to mash these things up. And that is how Swift Industries was born.
I love it. I love it so much. And the fact that with the like just mentioning the creative and coming into this world where you would feel like okay, doing something repetitive like doesn't really fit in that brain. And I never really like thought of myself as a creative because I couldn't draw, I didn't create, I didn't like do things with my hand, like making things, clothes, anything like that. But I have these other outlets that I'm creative, and yeah, any repetitive task can be, I can't do it too long, but when you put a goal in it, like I'm just gonna do it faster and this and that, like, oh yes, that hit for sure. Like I 100% can relate to those as kind of making things like a game almost. Like, all right, if I have to do this thing, how can I make it keep my attention by keeping things like interesting and a little bit different every day, because otherwise it's not.
Yeah, you totally nailed it, Taryn. Totally
Love
nailed it.
it.
Mhm.
And that's I just love how the connection came together too, of just realizing like, yeah, this is putting the outdoors on your bikes now, because you weren't a mountain biker and bikes came in like later in life, like they did for me too, where it's like, yeah, I rode around as a kid, but it wasn't until later. I had a big disconnect with bikes for a long time because I was just like, no, this is not that fun. Like just commuting. Sometimes I have a good time, but I've just now found the love again in the last, well, like since I've been in Tahoe for them, and bike packing's my next kind of step too, where I'm like, all right, I've done it just commuting to work, and there's a freaking uncomfortable backpack with a laptop on my bag. I'm like, I got to get this off my body. But then I also want to, yeah, feel what it is like to go do this thing that I love, like being outdoors, but with everything I need just on my bike, the full human powered thing. Cause I've toured, I've done some hut ski trips and stuff and backpacking, never like a crazy amount, but I haven't done it with my bike. And I'm like, how have I not had that connection yet? And so like I've been saying it, and I just have to keep putting it out there into the world to make sure I do it. But like this is the summer that I'm gonna start, even if it's just like down the freaking road a few miles at like the closest campsites or whatever. But how did that? I mean, what did that awaken for you when you went on like that first trip on your bike? Was it like this is it and you can't stop and you're just like always trying to plan as many, or how did it feel for you when you did that first bike packing trip?
Yeah, it was so amazing. It was like, again, just um so coming out of backpacking, and maybe this will resonate for you, Taryn, like I think I just like loved the cadence, the everyday cadence. It's like it's so simple. You break camp, you start moving, you move, you move, you move, you see incredible things. You have to dig deep sometimes. It sucks sometimes. There's highs and lows. It's physically demanding. You eat, you keep moving, and then you make camp, right? And it's like um there's this beautiful template for how the days are going to go, and then there's a million things that you experience within that template. And I was just really excited that with bike packing, you could cover more territory.
Hmm.
And it was in just a very different kind of physicality. Like, just, the process of cycling is just different than hiking. Neither is better than the other,
Hmm.
just super, super different. But I loved being able to cover more ground with my bike. And it just moved me through landscapes and smaller ecosystems faster. And I don't know, I just got off of like those first trips just totally intoxicated. I was hooked.
I love it.
Yeah.
That is awesome. So that gets you to this kind of like new point and appreciation for biking and all the things, and how when did you decide that like this is it? This is the business that I'm going to go off and venture on my own. And also, how long did it take you to go full time with Swift, because that's something that we don't always hear and maybe don't always think about as the like consumer or the person watching that, like, hey, this person still has a full-time job and is doing this, and it took them years, and it's something I have to remind myself of all the time, and also love to hear from others of like, look, it is totally normal to be doing the thing you're passionate about whilst doing other things to get you to the point where you can finally release some and go all in on something. And when you do go all in on something, it's not just that success overnight. It's scary and a risk, um and sometimes it may not work out. Like, you may have to press pause and go back to something else and kind of put it back on the, I don't want to say shelf it, but like maybe it is more on that passion again because you got to rebuild elsewhere. What did that kind of look like for you with Swift?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, honestly, Taryn, is like there are no straight lines in nature.
Ah,
Like that feels like so critical to what you just described.
mm-hmm.
So, like, nothing about this has been a straight line except for my stubbornness.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
um, so, like, both Jason and I had other jobs for the first for me it was 4 or 5 years until we decided to go full time at Swift Industries that I did. And we already had employees at that time. So like, I think I had 2 employees doing the in-house sewing. Well, I would go and I had a really incredible gig. So I worked for a local high school here in Seattle, Washington, and I was both their what we called life skills teacher, so sex and drug education in the high school, as well as did like all of their outdoor programming. So led backpacking trips, bike packing trips, farm stays, like all of the experiential ed stuff. So I
Wow.
wasn't a traditional classroom teacher, and I didn't have a traditional 9 to 5. It was really contract based and in these like kind of shorter bursts, and that just fit with being, that was like it paid enough for me. I mean, we are scrappy ass kids to this day, paid enough for me to be able then to feel like I could commit time and resources to building up Swift slowly and gradually, not taking a paycheck for a really, really long time, and putting what we were making back into the people that we were employing. And like, I think it's really critical just again to say, like, we are self started and we are self funded. Like, we have now accepted we have like some angel investors behind us, dear friends of ours who just like super to their core believe in what Swift Industries is doing. And we have some bank loans behind us. But like, I did not go the VC route. That wasn't on my radar. It was not in my realm of imagination. It certainly existed, but that just wasn't what I was thinking about as I was building Swift. And so it was such a slow process. It was like you make the thing, you invest a little bit of money back into it, and you just go step by step. And that lasted and held us for a bunch of years. Um, I think it's really critical, again, to note that we have always surrounded ourselves with incredibly ambitious individuals. Everybody who has come into Swift is like a dreamer and like really believes in the vision of what Swift could become. And so even though it was slow, it has been super purposeful. And I think that kind of is the fuel for the long haul, right? Um, and it has taken so many different shapes. Um, and I I have felt like I've almost broken it so many times. And that's been terrifying, and I've learned so many lessons about myself, about the ways that I think about money, what I believe about money that probably isn't even true. Just had to like reframe so many things um, as a result of growing this company. And those lessons have also been like really, really demanding. So, um, but I think I brought this like small scale agriculture, like this more sustainable, slow growth model and mindset too swift. And I'll go back to saying, like, there's no one way to run a company,
Mhm.
right? And like that is both the absolute genius and beauty of these wild endeavors that we take on. And sometimes that's the thing that is the most exhausting because as leaders, decision fatigue is very, very real. And there's a lot of room to make mistakes because there isn't a single playbook.
Mhm. Absolutely. I mean, decision fatigue, I feel like in anyone's life these days, especially we bring this back to this a lot, but like women, especially if you're a mom or a wife or you just feel like the kind of caretaker in your life, and I think a lot of us naturally do, and like you're tired of having to make even the little decisions of every day, what time or where, what's for dinner, these things. Like I've been very open when I had a day like in work, I was making a lot of decisions and I had to text my boyfriend and I was like, look, I cannot make another decision today. Dinner is fully on you. I need help. Like can't I cannot decide another thing. So just please make a decision for this. Like, but we have to be open about what those things are. And but bringing it back to, business and entrepreneurship as a leader, you don't have that option all the time to say, "Hey, please make this decision." Like, is there anything that you can think of that you've done in those moments when you've maybe felt that has kind of helped reground you or yeah, kind of reset? How can you get a clearer mind? And I'm sure this maybe has taken a long time and maybe it's something you're still even working on.
Oh, absolutely. I'm still working on it for sure. Because, like, the types of puzzles, as you grow your company, the types of puzzles will just evolve. Um, and so, hopefully, if we're doing it right, we are not up against the same uh, problems as and puzzles that we had 10 years ago. But because we cracked the codes 10 years ago, we now have opened doors to a whole new set of puzzles and challenges. Um, I know this isn't quite the question you asked, but to that note, I think that is the crux of entrepreneurial spirit. Like, you have to be okay with the fact that it's never going to get easier. It's
Mhm.
just going to evolve.
I love that.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and, like, for me, that has been my experience,
Mhm.
and certainly embedded in incredible independent business communities, between founders and support groups. That is definitely what I witness around me day in and day out. So, actually, that speaks really nicely to how I work through the decision fatigue. So, I have gotten much better at reaching out for help and surrounding myself with advisors. Um, and advisors who are like 10, 20, 30 notches above where I'm at. Like, if I think the person is out of my league, they are likely going to hold some sort of keys through their own lived experience that they're going to be able to speak to with great insight to get me past the roadblock that I'm experiencing. So I find myself networking all the time and I love collaborative input. I seek it all the time. I seek it from my employees, from my partner, from all different people in my realm. Um, and so that's one way. And then I think I've just gotten much better at gosh. I was going to say, like, slowing down to make decisions,
Mhm.
but actually it might be a little bit more like I've built a muscle that can identify what kinds of decisions I have to get out of my comfort zone to accelerate and which kinds of decisions demand and afford slowing down to make, because the different kinds of puzzles and decisions really need different kinds of evaluation. And I'm the kind of person who, like, when I'm overwhelmed, I really slow down. That has been a really hard lesson to learn, actually, because I was really embarrassed by that. Like, I kind of, when things become overwhelming, I'm the person who, like, kind of like comes out of my body, and like, I'm a deer in headlights
Mm,
personality. And for so many years, I was convinced that that was the thing that was going to prevent me from being the kind of business entrepreneur that Swift needed me to be. And these are all just the lies that we tell ourselves, right? Like, we are always telling ourselves things that, we've absorbed somewhere. Maybe it's just not seeing, when we think about the successful CEO or the successful business owner, they're just full of conviction, absolute clarity, and they have their marching orders and they just go, right? Like, that is not how I experience running my company. That's not my personality. So I have to, like, also accept a lot of things about myself and understand that those things aren't going to be the things that, like, break my company or ultimately, like, yeah, they're not going to be the thing that is the liability to my success. I just need to learn how to navigate them with more awareness, whether that's asking for help, understanding when I slow down, what the tools are that I need to be able to accelerate. um those are the lessons.
would you say that you didn't really learn those about yourself until starting Swift, or did you notice any of these things in yourself beforehand, like through teaching or anything else that you did?
I think that personal awareness has been absolutely increased in my 30s and 40s. And that, like, uh per like as is kind of right for the time, like, in my 20s and early 30s, I really thought that I had it, like, super figured out, and I knew
Mhm.
myself so well. And I do think, like, I have a strong sense of who I am, but there's, like, life is, like, again, like, we change, we evolve, our blinders open, and holy shit, like, if that wasn't the life I was living, I would be really disappointed. I want to change. I want to evolve. I want to understand that there are a lot of things that are latent inside of me that I haven't discovered yet. That's
Mhm.
what makes this whole thing so fucking fun, and terrifying sometimes. So I think it's like a mix, Taryn. It's like, I can, like, as you have heard, I can really look back to certain characteristics that I have had since I was a
Mhm.
crazy wild child in my oshposh bagosh, all the way
Yeah.
to things that I am just now discovering about myself and letting kind of, like, develop for the first time.
I love it because I think also we are still told a lot in society that like you should know who you are by a certain age, and once you know who you are, like that's just who you are. And it's like, no, like you said, we evolve, we change, and it's okay to have maybe planted a stake in the ground and well then change your mind about it and want to unstake that. And it can be hard, obviously, depending on what it is. If it's like really a conflict of like, a value change or something versus just like, well, I don't like this anymore. But it is okay because it also is okay to have a value change. When I think about people who were raised in certain like very strict places or whatnot, and you're realizing like, wow, there's more to the world when that I didn't know about, and you're just more open to people and things. And again, it's like it is absolutely okay to evolve and change. Does it make it easy? Absolutely not. Like it can be really hard to kind of come to terms with this like new person maybe that you're becoming, because it can change a lot of other things in your life as well. It's not just like, oh, I like this now. Like it can change the dynamic of a lot of your relationships. And I'm wondering if as you're kind of evolving yourself through the journey of Swift and whatnot, did you see any impact as a leader in your company? Like, did the evolution of who like you were or any more self-awareness impact like the changes that you went through with Swift, like the with the economy or like having to make decisions with your team members? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, in huge ways. So when we started Swift Industries, I was like really determined and committed to making every single product in-house and growing this company super, super slowly. Um, that encapsulated a lot of different values, like employing people locally, again, reducing what I perceived as our company's environmental footprint, making sure that we were like, yeah, again, like a small local business. Those were all things that really inspired and drove me when I thought about, again, like how I want to choose to participate in this world. Um, and then I am also like a visionary and I have a lot of drive. And as my life changed and the things that I wanted and needed started to change, that is like, I did want more than, you know, minimum wage, hourly wages for myself and my employees. And not only did I want them, we need them, right? Like I'm part of my retirement at the very least, if not all of it, is going to have to be from this company.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's like where in my 20s I just wasn't thinking about that stuff. I would argue like for me probably not until my late 30s I wasn't even thinking about that stuff. And so as um my needs, my wishes, my dreams have evolved and changed, then we have like actually a lot of success reshaped the business to fit the evolution of our lifestyles and identities too.
I
So
love it. It's
pretty
amazing.
sick. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
And I feel like that can give confidence to others too of like, look, a lot of this can be related back to just personally and making these changes and things will be okay, but also with your businesses, obviously it's going to be scary if especially if it's your livelihood, but it is possible to change and evolve the business to fit what you're how you're changing and evolving in values and stuff. Like it doesn't always have to be, it can change with you and it can be okay.
yeah. And I think like it can be really scary, especially for those of us who have like really put a stake in the ground on like doing things a certain way because of certain values. Like I think the clearest example for us is having now gone to manufacturing in Indonesia. We don't do any of our manufacturing stateside anymore. And that like I think that my 26-year-old self would be like, "What the fuck, Martina? Like this is not who you are." And I would be like, "Well, let me tell you, youngster." Like we have just again through life experience our again those blinders the our perspectives have just really opened and changed, and the things that I thought to be true have not been that black and white. Like our partnerships with our Indonesian factory are exceptional. The work that they do for us, we could not match the level of skill and expertise. Like we're really, really good bag makers. But what the production side in Indonesia has allowed us is like tapping into infrastructure and skill that is way beyond anything that we have experienced stateside. And we've worked with a lot of factories stateside. Um, So like it just kind of like opens up, and it's still not black and white. Like we
Mhm.
still have a lot of questions to bring to the table. Are we moving with the environmental integrity that we want at this stage? Are we making sure that we're still like bringing the right products to the table at the right time for our company, for our customers? Are we in service of our customers? Are we in service of the factories we're working with? Like, these are really important questions to hold regardless of where you're manufacturing and at what scale. So, yeah, the picture has definitely evolved, and our customers haven't all been happy.
Mhm.
Um, and I think, like, to that end, like, it is a fallacy, and especially as women, like, to think that, like, we're kind of like always taught to accommodate the people around us and make sure that they feel comfortable and happy. That's like part of how we think of caretakers and nurturers.
Mhm.
And I've come to a really important stage where I'm like, I will not be everything to everybody. I simply cannot. That is an impossibility. And I just cannot ask that of myself or offer that of myself. And so, what we really do is, I think we do an incredible job of communicating and educating our customer so that then they have agency over their purchasing power and their decisions. I still fundamentally believe in that. I think
Mhm.
that like everybody should have the information that they need to make the purchasing decisions that they want to make that match their
Mhm.
values. And so I'm not here to obscure any of that. We still want to make sure that for the people who it's very critical that they're buying US made, are encouraged to do that and are informed and understand where we're making things, how we're making things, and why.
Mhm. Mhm. I love the realization where you can't be everything for everyone. I think that's hard for a lot of us to come to, and but I think it is also very important to, like, not ask that of others. Like, you don't want everyone to be for you all the like, you can't expect that of others. You can't expect your customers to come along with the ride for you the whole time, and I feel like that maybe gives you just a feeling of just being able to let go and being able to maybe move from this place of making these decisions and changes because you aren't expecting everyone to come along with you. You know that you're going to lose people along the ride, but with losing people, you are gaining the space to bring on those who now align. So it's like you're always kind of filling in those gaps. It's not just a hole. And I think that's important for a lot of us to remember is that when you let go of something, that's exactly what it is creating that space for something else to fill it that is right at that time. And again, it can be difficult and I'm sure hard to learn with a business that you're kind of maybe seeing a drop off and you don't know when when the right customers will find you and a whole questioning of like, okay, but when will the new ones find us and did we make the wrong choice? But eventually you get to the point of like, nope, it takes time. We know we did what was right for us and the people who need to find us will find us. And speaking of kind of being for the customers, whoever that customer is right for you, it's like you have built something aside from the brand itself and the bags itself, but the Swift camp out to create this space for the people who are your people. And I would love to talk about that as it's coming up in a few weeks here. And I think that there's a lot of listeners who would be really stoked on this because it's not something that you have to buy a ticket to and attend and be in this place at this time, but something that anyone can do from wherever they're at, which again proves to me that what you're doing with Swift is like to find your people wherever they are.
Yeah, exactly. It's so well put, Taryn. Thank you for that. So, Swift Camp Out is our like big brand event. We think of it as like the dirtbag holiday of the year, basically at Swift Industries. We literally get as giddy about it as I might have gotten when Christmas came around as a little kid. And it is a global call to go bike packing on the June solstice. I've gotten really good at not calling it the summer solstice because
Mm,
it is global. So it is everywhere, but it's the June solstice. And it's astounding. So we've been doing this for 10 years, 11 years.
that's incredible.
It's so sick. We have people who go bike camping literally in all corners of the world. There are thousands of people who are going to go out. So it's so simple. You commit to going out bike camping on bike packing on the 21st of June. Pack up your camping gear onto your bicycle, pedal out to your local campground, and just enjoy kicking off summer under the stars with friends, solo, you name it. Totally your call. So there's a couple of really important things. So I'm going to encourage everybody to pick up your phone and go and check out swiftcampout.com, where we have a basically like a registry of global campouts. It doesn't give a whole view. We know that not everybody is registering their campouts, but it is astounding. I mean, we have folks in Japan and South Korea, Indonesia, Vietnam,
Wow.
um, Scandinavian countries, Germany, Mexico City. I mean, you name it. So many in Canada and so many campouts happening all over the US. And it really is this simple pleasure of knowing that there are people who just like really value the experience of unplugging. Life is fucking full. The hustle is real. It is exhausting. It can be fun and engaging. But like, I truly believe that critical to showing up in this world the way that I want to show up is slowing down, unplugging, centering, experiencing nature and fresh air and some physical challenge. Like, those are things that really bring me back into the core of who I am. And that's kind of the resounding, we'll call it an anthem or mantra that we hear from so many of our customers. That's like what so many people love so much about bike packing. And so it's this one day of just being like, wow, there are thousands of people all over the world who value this in their own ways, who have taken time to go bike packing. And it is literally the longest running global bike packing event on the books. And we platformed that. It's just, God, it's exhilarating. It's so meaningful, makes me feel so connected to our customers, and such a deep appreciation for what what building this company has connected me to.
It's absolutely incredible that it has been running for that long. And like when we talked before, I mentioned it's like you see these things, these types of events can kick off and be like very popular for an amount of time, and they can kind of fizzle out because people just decide like, oh, I can go do this anytime. So it's an amazing thing. It got people maybe into bike packing or this idea, or they're going out on their own, but like it's continuing to grow. And the fact globally, like I'm looking through the list right now and I'm like, oh my God, it's so amazing. And this is, I'm sure, a small fraction because not everyone is getting on there and like you said, like filling out the information and then posting it to the website. They're just doing it because they saw it, and it's
Totally.
like just getting bigger and bigger. And what'd you say, 11 years? That's amazing. And I have two kind of questions to wrap things. Well, I guess three really. One, first of all, is like, what are your plans for the camp out? Are you going with a big group with the company, solo, or like just with your partner? Let's start there.
Okay, cool. So we host an amazing, we call it the flagship Swift Camp Out. And it's here on Vashon Island, just kind of between your home turf and my home turf,
Mhm.
right between Tacoma and Seattle. And we'll be joined by 120 folks. It's going to be rad. Like there's a bunch of different facilitated rides that go out. And then a ton of people will just make their way to camp. And for Seattle area folks, that we still have spots in the meet at camp tickets. We highly recommend it. We make this amazing, beautiful kind of festival. We'll have camp activities. There's a ton of our sponsor brands that are coming to do activations. There will be watercolor classes, gear repair classes, tie dyeing, all bodies on bikes, and a phenomenal national nonprofit organization has a Seattle chapter that is going to be hosting the campfire. It's just going to be so rad. Like it is like, yeah, it is summer at its finest in the Northwest. So please do join us. And if you're excited about potentially plugging into your local area, check out the global registry, see if there's something happening in your neck of the woods. And if you're feeling entrepreneurial, like go ahead and create one.
Yes.
The other end of the receiving of like forms and posting up the public rides. So, um, yeah, I would love to post your local camp out wherever you might be.
So cool. I love the sound of that Seattle one. Sounds amazing. I wish I was going to be in town. My whole family will be down here in Tahoe. So I'll be excited to at least be hanging out with them, see if I can get them on bikes for the day at least. My other question that I have is because I always forget to ask it with people, or often forget rather, but where does the name come from?
Great question. So when we started our company, we were living in a punk house in Georgetown, which is a neighborhood in Seattle, right off of Swift Avenue. So that
Ooh.
was like part of it. It's like really a sense of place. And then the fox is a little like beautiful migrating fox, endemic to kind of the Dakotas area. It's a plains fox called the swift fox. So that has become our lovely little mascot.
Awesome. I love a brand story. So I always want to know. And then I just want to know before we get out of here, of course, if there's anything that you want to mention that we didn't get to, please do. But is there anything you'd like to leave the people with, like any kind of tidbit of advice or something? And it could be business related or not, whether that's just, like I said, kind of pushing through to follow your values, or what's the number one tidbit you could think of you can leave with someone? Like it can be just a personal thing too, not just business related.
Yeah. I mean, I think like y'all heard a lot from me about like the power of bicycles on the daily. And it would just like overjoy me if folks left this conversation and were like insanely excited to pull out their bike, whether they were on it this morning or it's been a couple of years. Dust that thing off and like start small. Go to your like favorite watering hole or to a friend's house or whatever, and just like feel um I don't know, the ease of being on a bicycle, the freedom of movement. Think about how you don't have to pay for parking and
Yeah.
gas and all that stuff. I mean, these are like really real benefits of being on a bicycle. And God, I just like, I do just I love that this tool gives you agency without doing such like minimal impact to the environment and to the people in your communities. There's no like off gassing and all these things that I think it's just like such a rad daily practice. So that would be my take home, would just be like, if you're inspired, go get on that bike and just take a fucking joyride.
Yes, I love it so much. Even if it's just like around your block, and if you don't have a working bike or something, I mean, ask your neighbor or a friend, or I don't know. I agree. I mean, I'm inspired too, and I don't think I'll be able to today. I have loads of work to catch up on from doing this retreat, but I'm dying to, and I knew that was going to be the hardest part for me to get through my day is like, I don't think I can get on my bike, but like hopefully first thing tomorrow morning. And I couldn't agree more, like to pull that sucker out and get on one, and maybe even like don't bring your phone if you're not going far, and you wouldn't need it for any kind of emergency. But I got to disconnect like completely for even just a day, and I was like, this is amazing. So like 5 minute, 10 minute, whatever quick ride, if you can not take your phone or like put it on airplane mode or something like that, if you feel uncomfortable not having it, like to be able to not get interrupted, not get a text, not get a call, not think about work for just a few minutes and let yourself like really feel the bike.
Yeah, it's a total gift, whether it's on bike or not, like that unplugging.
Mhm.
I just can't encourage it enough. I know that it's like really, really meaningful for me.
Absolutely, and I don't get it enough, and I would really like I'm going to start practicing that of, like, definitely I've gotten on focus modes more, but still just kinda being able to leave it somewhere and, yeah, really forget about it for a minute. Unplugging is huge, 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 and I think especially coming into summer for a lot of us, we do have a little more time, like, a day rather. I can't tell you all you have more time in the day, but we have more day, and hopefully that does allow you to find a little bit of more time to be able to unplug and like let's take advantage in the northern hemisphere of some longer days and more opportunity to get outside, get on your bikes. And it has been amazing to hear your story, Martina. And I know there's a million more things we could dive into. And it's always great to have someone the first time to be able to get to talk about it all, and then be able to have you again sometime to maybe talk about something a little more focused in. And I'm on your website right now looking at bags and dreaming up my first bike packing like trip for the summer that I'm like, okay, I got to sit down and really like plan this out and figure it out. And yeah, it's just exciting talking to people who share the love and the stoke. And I hope too that we've inspired some of you listeners to be able to get out there. You can look at the show notes to find all the links for Swift Industries and that camp out. So maybe you can start thinking about finding one in your area or setting one up. And thank you all out there for listening. Martina, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll talk to you all next week.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Taryn.
Yes, you're welcome. Thanks, all. We hope you enjoyed this episode and would do us a huge favor, since we don't have any sponsors or anything like that, and would rate and review us on whatever platform it is you use, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, whatever it is. And if you're listening and downloading just through the website, tearingituppodcast.com, leave comments. We'll definitely engage back with you. And on social media right now, we're just on Instagram. Tearing It Up Podcast is the handle. Like the post, share the post, comment on the post, whatever it is you got. Show us your love so we just stay relevant and show up in the rankings at all. So again, rate and review, please. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.